All right, Leger, let's take a look at last year's summer scouting consensus with the first pick rankings, and I'll let you grade these. These are from me and our buddy Rick Spielman and Mike Renner, and this is what we came up with collectively. Number one, James Pierce Jr., who was all about fighting at Falcons camp right now, the 26th overall pick, and in part because nobody can block him. So he's doing his job. Number two, Michael Williams ended up going 11th overall to the 49ers. JTT ended up being a second-round pick to the Colts, I believe. Nick Scorton, second-rounder, and Jack Sawyer ended up being a fourth-rounder to the Steelers. All told, I feel pretty good about this list, given that, we're about 9 months out from the draft or whatever.
Yeah, that wasn't a bad list at all. I would say you probably had Abdul Carter as a off-ball linebacker, I'm assuming.
Right.
Right.
And we didn't know what it was going to look like because he had only played off-ball linebacker, and he got a name check in the conversation. But otherwise, Abdul Carter aside, I feel pretty good about that list.
No, that's actually a really good list. I mean, 4 of your 5 guys went in the top 2 rounds, right? And then your last guy went in the 4th round. So I would say percentage-wise, that's actually a really good hit rate for you, Rye.
Yeah, and I love me some Jack Sawyer, and you got on me about his little T-Rex arm, so that didn't help him. That's why he ended up being a 4th-round pick. He feels like a Steeler. Oh. The other first-rounders, Jalen Walker, another hybrid sort of player because he can play off ball and certainly can play on the edge. Shamar Stewart, not a ton of production, and then the issues with the Bengals is another conversation there. Donovan Ezraku ended up being the first edge rusher in round 2, and he was on the radar, but undersized, and his ability to play against the run were the questions. Apparently, he's been lights out at Cowboys camp, so that's also good to hear. All right, producer Sharon, let's take a look.
Quick, Ryan. Where'd you have Mike Green in your summer scouting? Where was Mike Green on your list?
Mike Green, I think we did not talk about him, and it wasn't until maybe late summer, early fall that he sort of popped on the radar, and he popped on the radar big time because you and I both loved the way he played. Had the off-field issues, fell to the second round to the Ravens, but it just feels like a Ravens pick that's going to be a grand slam once he gets on the field. Yeah, no, that's a good question. And the other thing is this, that just points to there's so many guys that we talk about, and there's going to be a bunch of guys we are not talking about that are going to explode into the scene. Thanks. So maybe it takes what is a good edge rush class. I don't think it's as deep as last year's on paper right now, and makes it a great edge rush class once we get to that point. 28 guys were drafted last year at edge rush. Leger, 5 in the first round, 5 in the second, 6 in the third. One of the names that pops out to me, I think it's sort of funny, and Princely Umanmielen, his brother, Prince Will Umanmielen, who transferred from Nebraska to Ole Miss, is also going to be in this conversation as we get through the draft process. All right, let's look at our top 5 edge rush rankings for with the first pick summer scouting as we sit here. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, Leger, I'm gonna make some changes, and this is because you and I talked about Keldric Faulk yesterday. I gone back and watched him a few days ago because a peek behind the curtain. I watch all these guys in May, and then I take June off to do stuff with my family, so they don't try to get rid of me. And then I circle back, and there have been a lot of buzz about Keldric, so I went back and watched him, and I'll give you my rankings, and I'll give you Rand's as well, because he sent him along because that's how Rand rolls, even though he's on vacation. Both he and I had T.J. Parker number 1 out of Clemson. Keldric Faulk was number 2 for Rand. I moved him up to number 2 after rewatching him again. Ruben Bain out of Miami, who's going to be a little controversial, and you and I will talk about him at number 3 for me, number 4 for Rand. Tyreek Sapp out of Florida I had next, and Tyreek was 1 ahead of Ruben Bain at number 3 for Rand. And then R. Mason Thomas, who is the only sort of guy who isn't 270 plus. He's closer to 250, maybe a little less than that, a little juice off the edge. And you talked about that yesterday when we had a conversation. And at number 5 on Rand's list is DJU's brother, Mateo Uyunglele, who's also young. I have him a little further down on my list, and we'll spend time in the fall talking about him. But consensus rankings, let's start with Keldric Faulk at number 5, who has since been moved up to number 2, but it is what it is right now. He's a first-round pick all day long. And I told you, when I watched him the first time, I must have had some reservations about him because when I went back and rewatched him, I thought maybe I'd written his name down wrong. I'll just give you this. Unofficially 6'6", 288. He is 19 years old. He won't turn 20 for 2 more months, and they line him up everywhere. 0 technique, 3 technique on third downs. They'll line him up at 7 technique. And I think he needs to get better as a pass rusher. But again, my man is not 20 years old. And in terms of setting the edge, he is crushing it in the SEC. So I'll let you take over because you were higher on him from the beginning, and I'm coming to this party late, sadly.
Yeah, honestly, Rod, he's pushing TJ Parker for my number one guy, just
Wait.
summer wise heading into the fall camp. Crazy upside. You talked about it, only 19 years old, hasn't even turned 20 yet going into his third year. You see the length on tape 6'6, 285, 288, somewhere in that range. And he uses it well to stack and shock and get extension on offensive linemen and then get off of blocks as well. At times, though, just want him to be a little bit more consistent at the point of attack. Because there's times, Rod, like you go in that Alabama game, and he just dominated their O-line at times. And then you turn on tape with the other teams, and it just isn't consistent. And you talked about it. His prowess as a pass rusher really isn't there yet, but he has all the tool set, right? They'll slant him a lot, and you see the strength in his lower body to be able to split offensive linemen and get to the quarterback. And then he has really good fluid hips where even though he's 6'6 and 285, usually guys like that, right, are stiff. He can flip and get on the edge. You see him against Armand Membu right there, who was a first-round pick who went to my Jets last year. You see it, 7 sacks, 45 total tackles. But he's a guy that has ridiculous upside. To me, he can be a 4-3 based in a 4-3 scheme, or he can even put on 10, 15 pounds and be a big end in a 3-4 head up on the offensive tackle, which to Ryan's point, they used him a lot at Auburn doing that. He slanted inside, slanted outside. Again, with that arm length, being able to knock offensive tackles back, disengage, and get to in the backfield and create havoc. That's what he can do. So honestly, on this list, just going through the tape that I went through the last few days, he's pushing the number one spot because his upside is through the roof.
And that's the thing. And you and I were talking about not a true comp, but a loose comp for him. And before I get to that, I just want to mention all but 2 of his sacks came on third down last year. That also is important. You're not getting first and
Correct.
50 sacks in the first quarter when it doesn't matter. But I want to bring up a name, and this young man was much older coming out. He had transferred already from Texas A&M to Texas Tech, and he was 23, I believe, in his draft. Tyree Wilson, top 10 pick. The Raiders had the foot injury, and it's just not worked out yet, injury or otherwise. I don't know why. But if you see glimpses of that in Keldric, in terms of the length, and by the way, 6'6", 288 is bonkers for an edge rusher. The difference for
Correct.
me is the fact that he is so incredibly young and he doesn't even know what he's doing yet. And what you said to me yesterday when we talked, if a coach gets his hands on him and knows what he's doing, that could be a wrap.
And that's the thing, right? And that's why I think versatility wise, why I would maybe move him up on this list because there's so much to do with him. He's like a bowl of clay right now. He just needs to be molded. The skill set is there. He does things naturally that a lot of people can't even do with coaching as far as his natural ability to play with extension, right? A lot of times, right, you see guys play like all tight like this and you can't really get that extension to see or diagnose the play. He's always locked out, right? I just need him to be consistent and disengaging. Now, again, that Bama tape, which again, Pitts was probably running a little hot. That's the rivalry game. So you're going to have some juice in that game. And anytime you're playing guys that you probably grew up playing against, you're going to want to put your best foot forward, right? So to your point, not even 20 years old, still young, still developing. You want him to be a more precise pass rusher, but that's going to come with coaching. Again, the things that he does naturally, that's what I always look at on tape. Like, can I coach that? Can I coach the natural ability? Does he have the natural ability to be able to just naturally flip his hips, get skinny, and be able to split guys and get into the backfield? And he has all those tool sets. So I'm really high on him. I can't wait to see how he performs this fall.
Yeah, so again, I apologize to Keldric Faulk and his family for having him number 5 because he is actually revised number 2 on my list, but I didn't want to throw the graphics team into it until trying to sort that out. So I'll own that one. Before we go to break, though, I'll ask you this. Tell me when to stop. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to read you out the last year's first round picks, or from 2 months ago, the 2025 class of edge rushers, and you tell me where Keldric Faulk is going to, whether you would take Keldric Faulk over this person. Abdul Carter, 3rd overall.
No.
Michael Williams at 11.
Yes.
Whoa!
Based off the summer tape, I would. Yeah.